Yo, it is Wednesday, March 23rd. I got the day right, and we have a Wednesday graphic. That surprised me. Today, we're talking about a dealership that became a zoo, Ukrainian workers, a crowdsourced markup tool tracking dealers all over. I don't know. Too much. The Wednesday
so much.
The Wednesday threw me way off.
If you're not watching the live stream, this is what's great about adding new people to the team. You get more value out of the time in a day, because there's no time that Paul and I would ever be like, let's throw a Wednesday graphic in front of our faces to start the pod. But that's the beauty of having Isaac in the background producing this thing, rocking and rolling. But we got surprised. We got thrown off.
That's fantastic. I love this. This is like a new reaction video moment. Kyle, right before we jumped into the stream, we were like, all right, let's review the show notes. And we're like, what are we talking about today? I'm like, a dealership that became a zoo, a crowdsourced markup tracker. And Kyle's like, wait, if you would have told me 6 months ago that this is the stuff we'd be talking about, I would not believe you. We had a phone call on the way when we were both driving in from work or into the offices today. And we were just super excited about today. And we were saying, like, today feels like things are coming together. Today's the day where things are going to come together. We have been feels like marching through the mud in a good way, right? Because there's so much to do. ASOTU is doing so many things. Like, we're hiring people, like we're rolling. And it's easy to get buried in the minutia of, growing a business and running a business, that you feel like sometimes like I worked all day, but what did I get done? Right. And so this morning totally doesn't feel like that already.
No, yeah. It feels like just because we're doing things that like we're getting somewhere. There's something happening. There's already, Paul, this is what I love about, and I wrote this in the email, but this word culture, and there's so many businesses that have this, where it's like all the employees wake up with this, like, let's get going. How do we make today's happen? We talked about the service teams yesterday. They're always in early, and the businesses that I would challenge you, if you're looking at your business and you're seeing everyone roll in 5 minutes late, you probably have a culture that isn't exciting to come to. But if everyone's 10 minutes early, and all of a sudden before you even get started, people are starting to ping you on the excitement that's going to happen that day.
That's a good thing.
That's good. Like, that's going to be a barometer for me now moving forward for all the things that we're doing, because I recognize that energizes me as I get started in a day. It's like, whoa, it used to be me kind of getting things started. Now we're watching others get things started in the morning. And that's the energy that we want to keep, at least in the ASOTU contagious world of automotive. And I think that's what we're encouraging others to kind of find and draw out of their people.
I love that. There's like this element of, everyone saying like, hey, people need time to refresh, right? They need a start time. They need a stop time so they have room for the personal life. I know there's been elevated attention on personal life, work-life balance, me time, a little self-development, all that stuff. However, I would argue that when your work is actually part of your passion, right?
Yes. Being
there early and staying late is actually a very fulfilling thing, because you're passionate about what you do. I've often used thriving. The word thriving is the benchmark. Like, how do I know that my team is doing well? Well, yes, people want to learn new skills. Yes, people want to get a new title and want to make more money. But if people feel like they're thriving,
yes,
right, nothing else matters, because people stay where they're thriving. A ping pong table is never going to do it. A pallet wall is never going to do it, right?
Yeah, because nobody plays ping pong at 6:30 at night because they wanted to stay at work. Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's not what they're doing at 6:30 or 8 or whatever, whatever your closing time is. They're not like, what, I'm going to hang around for that extra game of ping pong.
Right? All right. We didn't have it planned to talk about any of this stuff today, but it's just the way it went. I think you want to draw focus to the daily email. We send it out. If you don't get it, more and more people are signing up. Actually, we had a bunch of subscriptions just this morning. And here's why, because we're trying to arm you. If you're a dealer, we're trying to arm you with some words and some thoughts that you can get to start your day. So yesterday there was this encouragement to the service department. Today it was about culture. And what dealers are doing is using this in morning meetings. They're using it to circulate with their teams to encourage and inspire. We believe so many feel this way. We're trying to give you some words to use. So ASOTU.com, ASOTU.com, get on the email list and see if you can get a daily dose of that. It's great to see when a dealer shared it with their team, because you see dealer personnel signing up. So now we have the opportunity to encourage them every morning as
Bingo.
well.
You know what? I want to just sorry, another unplanned thing. We'll get to the fun stuff like zoos. But, a lot of times in the dealership or in a company, you might find something, like if you're listening, you find something, you're like, oh, that's really good. I'm going to eat from it and utilize that within my community, right? I'm going to take that and utilize that as my leg up. But our encouragement is not to just use that as a leg up and not let anybody else in, but to share it, because then actually what happens is, let's say both people get the email or listen to the podcast or whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be the ASOTU stuff, but both people are talking about or thinking about the same things on the way in, right? To work or whatever you're doing in a day. All of a sudden the conversations start to pile on that. And actually the acceleration to innovation or change or better culture or anything like that happens quicker than you having to carry that message or draw out all of the intentionality.
That's a great point. That's a great point. If you're a dealer, we said that's what it's good for. If you're an industry partner, if you're a vendor, guess what? Has the same effect, right? You're trying to get your team fired up about the automotive industry. You're trying to bring some encouragement to your dealers and your customers, or if you're an account exec, right? The people that you deal with on a regular basis. So we're trying to come at it from both angles. Let's talk about a few things that are going on. Let's start. I want to give some props to the Ukrainian wire harness assembly worker. It's unbelievable. Oh, we got a comment for Rob not getting audio. I don't know what's going on. Maybe close your browser and open it back up, because audio, I think we're saying everything's fine. I'm hearing it, and we usually hear the stream too. So if you're having trouble with the audio, maybe it's a LinkedIn issue, or maybe it's a you issue, Rob. Maybe it's a you issue. Gotta plug your headphones in. I'm kidding. So in Ukraine, we covered this story about a week or maybe 2 weeks ago, where the wiring harness factory, a lot of VW wiring harnesses are made in Ukraine, and they were still putting them together. Automotive News covered the story, still putting it together. This is kind of a follow-up. Auto News kind of followed up on this and said, not only are they still doing it, but they're actually increasing production from 40% capacity to 70% capacity by adding a night shift. There have been several times, it's right next to a bunker. They've had to evacuate and go back, evacuate and go back. Let me just talk about the determination and grit of these Ukrainian workers making wire harnesses, and the fact that we in the auto industry in the United States get to participate in that through the work that we do. It's hard to really connect those dots, but right now we're helping to support them, and they're working hard to support us by supporting their family. It just reminded me of how broad the industry is, and also how much grit is just in the DNA of the automotive industry, from the manufacturing lines all the way through to the retail sale.
Yeah, it encourages, it tells me you better get going, right?
Yeah.
If I'm in the automotive industry, I've heard this from a lot of people, and actually Brian Benstock, one of our investors, says it a lot. He says, think about all the people that count on a salesperson selling a car, a service person, servicing a car. Think about the line, where that goes back to. It goes back to the OEM jobs, the manufacturers, the parts builders across the world, the taxes that go into making roads in the cities, the kids that are growing up playing sports. Think about everything that depends on someone selling a car. There's a lot of weight there, but there's a lot of encouragement there that says, hey, look, this is more than just me putting a car, the keys of a car into someone's hand, or putting food on my table at home. Right. This is me supporting a global economy.
Yeah.
By wrapping my hands around this customer and caring for them enough to get them into a vehicle.
That's so cool. We did the service ode to service, the people that show up early. Maybe the next one will be to the people who always stay late, which are the salespeople.
Let's go.
The salespeople. Right? We got from both angles. So, again, if you don't know, in the show notes of the podcast or the live streams, we link up articles to everything we talk about, so you can actually check them out on what we are talking about. Speaking of articles that we're writing,
stop. Segue
time. Yeah,
that's okay. We'll let that. We'll feel that slide. So our staff writer, Chris Isaac, if you haven't gotten to know him, you will. And if you
Chris Reeves,
I'm sorry,
Isaac is the producer.
We have people everywhere. Chris and Isaac together. Chris Reeves, sorry, bud. But if you've laughed at a Telling It Like It Is, or a GIF, chances are he had a lot to do with making you laugh. And so he wrote an article. Now he's full time. Right now we're producing our own articles. He tracked down on LinkedIn I don't know, was it the sales manager or general manager?
Sales manager, Jimmy Jones of
Jimmy
Buyers
Jones,
Automotive. Yep.
And they literally brought a zoo into the showroom.
So good, man. There were, and my favorite part about this was he asked, what animal stole the show. Look, every single time, if you got a kid under 7, if there is a sloth in the room, that animal wins. Period. End of story. It's between sloth and koala.
There's a sloth at this little zoo near us in Syracuse, and it was the first time I had seen one up close, and they're so slow and just so cool.
I know, it's like you just don't even care at some level. I feel like you're like, I'm just here.
I'm like, how do you live? My hand. I'm like, how do you live? I'm thinking, like, how do you even procreate?
Right.
I'm like, how does the species survive?
Well, everybody's gonna be like, what happened to Wednesday's podcast?
But either way, so they actually had 300 people come to the showroom to see some representatives of the Columbus Zoo who brought 6 animals in. They had a leopard tortoise and a chinda. Is it like a porcupine-like animal from Australia? An armadillo, a shingleback lizard, and an anteater. Is it an anteater or an aardvark? Is that the same thing?
I think they're slightly different. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask my 6-year-old. He'll know.
Well, yeah. Yes, he will. And then of course the sloth. And talk about serving the community in a fun way. You think that was fun for the team? Yes. You think it was fun for the community? Yes. Do you think the zoo appreciates some support? Always do, right? They're always looking for new people to visit. And so, there's just a great article on ASOTU.com where you can click through at the show notes. That Chris kind of writes up a nice little heartwarming piece of his childhood that he shared. And if only Columbus was closer to Nashville, he would have been there.
Yes, I love that part. It's so good.
All right, we saved this last story for last because this is probably going to be the most fiery one. So yesterday,
this may get some people fired up.
Yeah, it already has. You should see the comments. Yeah. So yesterday, Bob Lanham, the head of automotive for Meta, posted a website. I can't remember what the URL is.
It's just markup.com, I think.
Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, it is. Yep, it's markup.com, or maybe it's. Hold on, I want to get this right.
Markups.org. Markups.org.
Okay, so markups.org. Somebody created a simple tracking tool where people can crowdsource, right? You can crowdsource which dealers are marking up cars by how much.
Yep. So basically you go in, you submit the dealer, the markup, and the type of car that you are looking at. And basically that you can say like, hey, this is the dealers. And so you got some with 0, some with 5,000, 10,000, there's 15, 18,000. And we know this, we're a part of the industry, and we all know that people are marking out cars, inventory short. This is a reality. And I think there's some validity in it. The thing is now is that it's not just, hey, it's happening, or maybe there's an article or two. People are creating whole websites, dropping them on Reddit and all of these feeds where people are starting to crowdsource, like who's better, who's worse, what's happening across the industry. And the volume of them that are in there is pretty wild. Like this thing has picked up steam.
You can go in there and search your dealership. So point and counterpoint. Let's do point counterpoint for a minute.
Do it. Yeah.
We've been talking about, like, is it okay? We have respectable dealers on both sides of this equation, right? Hey, like supply and demand, right? There's a shortage. We only have so much inventory, right? Like markups are fine. That's how the supply and demand works, right? The less supply, the more demand, right? The higher the price. And that's how we regulate. So yes, the other side is like, no, this is going to continue to perpetuate distrust in dealers, so they know how much we're marking it out. So those are really the two sides. I think you can do both sides with integrity. I think dealers are operating on both sides of that. We'll see what the result is, as inventory regulates and we get back to normal, which probably is not going to happen for quite a long time. And so you look at the comments and there's people that are really angry. How dare they? And there's people that are really like like excited, right? There's going to be bring transparency to the consumers in there saying, yeah, this is great. And then there's like quite a few like little popcorn emojis, right? Like, I'm just going to sit back and watch this thing go down, right?
Yeah.
This comment section.
My favorite comment on Bob's post was, looks like the new True Car.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's like the True Car of markups, not markdowns. It's so
right.
interesting.
And people are like, well, it's possible to game the system, right? You can have salesmen from one store going in and entering fake transactions for the right. But here's the thing: when you have a large pool of data, the point is that like the volume of data swallows up the positive negatives, the same way like ratings on Amazon, right?
Yep.
If someone's just in to get it, or eBay or anything like that, like if you have enough data, then it doesn't really matter. I will say this: you should search your dealership and you should at least know, right? You should at least know. It's always important to build as much value into the transaction as you can. I'm willing to bet if there was like a markup tracker for pretty much any product these days, from a percentage wise, there would be so many retail products that are by far like way more percentage markups, historically than cars. We know that because $1,000 markup on a $50,000 vehicle is not a lot percentage.
Not a lot. It's still not. Yeah. So but it's a good talking point to think like the perception of automotive is still that someone has to create this website.
Yep.
Right. And so understanding that, allowing your sales team, but not just your sales team, your accounting team, your service team, to recognize the reality of how you're doing business, ensure that the communication is good internally and externally, and recognize that the perception of our industry still has a large scale perception that is not great. And so turning that tide takes a lot. And we can do that in times of markup, but the communication has to be very, very top level.
Without a doubt. Michael Webb, no audio for you either. LinkedIn's having some issues. You can turn subtitles on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And then you can just like, I don't know, you watch the subtitles. Or another platform. If you go to YouTube, go to ASOTU, ASOTU.be. And if you go there, it's live streaming on YouTube and you probably have audio there. Look, man, we went over today just because.
We went over. Wait, we got one more thing, Paul. We got one more thing we didn't talk about. We got to talk about Paul's knee. Paul, let me just tell you, your knee is one of the most fabulous things I've ever seen in a photo.
Talk about a showstopper.
Just a showstopper, just the point on it, the accuracy at which you were having that step on the chair, right? So thanks to Automotive News for allowing us to be a part of the article that Paul got the opportunity to lead that panel, and his knee got into the shot. What a huge kudos from them.
I'd say yes, it was a cars.com. They reached out and asked if I would moderate a panel on diversity and inclusion at NADA. So we brought our whole camera crew over. We set it up, moderated an amazing conversation with 6 really great people. We added one at the last minute. And Automotive News wrote a story, and my knee made it in. There was no mention in the article of who the phantom moderator was, but my knee is in there, and we forever will be grateful for featuring my knee in Automotive News. The first time my photo has ever been in Automotive News, so I'm excited. I'm excited about this. All right, all said and done. Thank you so much for being part of the troublemaking squad this morning. Look, in the beginning, we talked about culture. Go out there, encourage some people today, serve some people today. You have the chance. It is up to you.